Jason at Mustang Rehab, back on the Bronco today. We're going to put in a new radiator support and the mounts that connect it to the wheel tubs. We're going to sand it off and expose the spot welds. Alright, real quick, don't forget your dimensioning. We found out with the A-pillars it always doesn't do you any favors, but at least you'll have an idea of where you need to start before you just blindly go into it. Alright, there's the spot welds. Again, just take a grinder and it exposes where they are, where you need to drill them out. Sorry I neglected to point this out. Take a little time before you cut all your support out front, because right now my aprons aren't attached, and as soon as I cut the radiator support loose, my tubs won't have any support. So I just have a couple 2x4s and a 2x8 there screwed together holding the tub up, so it has a little support once I release it. At the lower corners, down around where the your body mount is, it's got a sort of a vertical tab that's welded that I have to cut off, and then we'll clean it up. I'll show you over here since Johnny's on this side, right in here. So I'm just going to reach in there with a cut-off wheel and cut this off. When I pull it out of the way, I can come back in and clean this weld off. Alright, all that's cut loose. Should, well, a little straggler there. Alright. Another piece for the boneyard. Alright, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and pull these off, get these out of the way. This was those little tabs I was talking about a minute ago I need to clean off. I'll get the grinder out and dress that up, and then I'll dolly this out and go ahead and work this and make this pretty, because once I get those supports welded back on it, it's going to be hard to make it look right. So we'll smooth that out, make sure it's straight, and then we'll move on to the radiator support and the mounts. Johnny wanted me to point out what I'm using is just a rust converter. Don't make fun of me for not replacing this panel after replacing all these other panels, but this is really the only spot that had really any surface rust. It's not really deep, it's just on the surface. I've sanded it off. It's hard to get down in the grooves, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandblast the inside of the engine bay here after we get everything else put together. But just in these hard to reach spots, I'm just going to grind it as much as I can, and I've steel brushed it, get down there, and then I'm just going to treat it with a rust converter, and we'll come back and sand it again real smooth, make it pretty, and you'll never know that was there. But anyways, so I'm not just covering up rust, I am treating it. We'll come back, prime it, sand it some more, and sandblast it. But this just helps me get to the areas that are exposed right now. Alright, we we've got our wheel tubs prepped. I've got some primer sitting on it. The primer's drying right now. We put that rust converter. I like to let it dry, and then I'll go back and wipe it off with just some acetone or paint thinner or whatever you have in your shop. Let's go back and wipe it back off, and then I prime over it. So this will add a little bit of protection for now, because the biggest part of the spot weld will go into our supports here. So you see I have my old and my new. You can tell there's a little bit of difference. I opted for the V8 radiator support. It's got a little bit wider opening. And I'm also putting power steering on this Bronco, and that's what this cutout is here. It's for the power steering. I think the later models came with this as you see it. So I measured my bolt holes for my supports, and it's 9.5 inches from the edge. So it'll be 9.5 inches on both sides. And then I know that my support flushes up against the bottom of the grill. So that's easy enough. So we'll have one right in there. And again, that looks terrible. Maybe it's got a little rake, but and then they ship us the second for the battery tray. And our third, which goes down on the other end. So now's Joni's favorite part, is me staring at it for 10 minutes and making sure that it's where I want it to be. And then we'll come back and talk about it. Alright, so what I'd like to show you about how I went about this was, first, checked my measurements. This one turned out to be 9.5 inches off the edge. So 9.5 inches, I went ahead and measured this one. The tab on the back, if you order yours, this tab won't be in the right position. You'll have to massage that a little bit. And so by moving it back, it allows it to sit real nice and flush. The Radiator Support has a slight rake to it, and so you can see it right there. That translates from the Radiator Support to the body mount. So that's correct. And then I just made me some marks on the bottom so I can remember which one it is. That's at number 1, and then the bottom mark where I can line the two up when I'm ready to go ahead and weld it up. And then, of course, all your spot weld holes. And again, I'm going to weld from the back side. It won't be seen. I can stick my gun down in here and get all those filled out. Same thing on this other side. I've got it right where I want it. Same thing, 2 marks. 1 mark on the piece, 1 mark on the panel. Got my top marks so I know that I'm square. And this one the same thing. I just sort of drew an outline once I had it where I wanted it. I know this mark is supposed to be on the outside of the piece. So I can get those welded up. And again, I'm just checking all my dimensions from this other panel. Alright, so we've got it all welded out. I've got a feeling this is going to be Joni's favorite part because it goes so fast. I've got the radiator support set up there. I wish I had another apron right now so I could pull it up tight with it. It's been on, well, I got one in, it was the wrong side, they had the right sticker, wrong side. I've told you guys that story. Called the company, they're supposed to be sending me another one, but I think it's on back order, so that's great. And along with some of the pieces at the bed, some of those parts are on back order too, so I hope this doesn't delay too much of the build, but we're trying to move on and continue building as much as possible. So I'm gonna see how much I can actually feel comfortable with squaring it up without the other apron. So we'll see what happens. You guys wanna see fitting issues? I've got another one. If you look here, when I set it up there, I'm like, well, that's not right. This, I know all this is gonna have to come up, but if you look at this angle, this spot weld, I'm gonna have to drill that out and actually kick this forward. This is going in the wrong direction. The Bronco has a rake from the radiator support going in this direction. So you can see how bad this is. And the other side is the same way. I'm inclined to put my bumper, my fenders on. I can at least bolt the fender to the front, even though the apron isn't quite right yet. And I can bolt my other fender up and fit that before I put the radiator support on, because this is a pretty big deal and I hate to rush it for the sake of the video just to be done today. So I might do that. This might be a part 2 because we want it to be right and not have to drill out my own spot welds. So, hey guys, all right. I don't need to say hey guys every time. Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys.
Well, you say all right, so every time.
All right, so. Coin, that'll be my coin. All right, so.
No, it's not that fast though. It's all right. So.
What do I say now? So. I don't know how to start. Okay, so. All right, we've got our radiator support mocked in place. It took a little while. Let Johnny show you. I told you I didn't have an apron, so I just used some sticks. Basically, one to keep it dimensionally in and out away from the firewall where it's supposed to be. This one here just makes sure that I'm staying in check with my straight edge here running down where my new apron will be. And then I took dimensions from the top of the wheel well down to the floor before I disassembled it. And then of course I had my dimensions from the bottom edge to the floor pan. So everything, and I've got a couple screws in it in a couple places, but it sets in place. And if you wonder why I had the hood on it, because that also helps me make sure I keep it square on the ends, so I can find out exactly where it's supposed to be. I can measure both sides. I have the same dimension, and from in and out to the end. I know that doesn't matter as much because your end piece mounts to the fender, but it just gives you a bunch of places that you can pull dimensions and give you the warm fuzzies before you start welding it in.
You need to talk about this thing, what you did to fix this.
Oh, okay. We talked a minute ago about these ears were turned down. Well, after looking at them, they put one tack here and one tack here. And that actually gives you a little bit of flexibility to pull that up. But I went ahead and drilled the bottom one out so it makes it a little bit easier. That one's done the same way. And I'm not going to weld this one back up until I get the apron, but I'm going to go ahead and drill some spot welds in it because I really feel like it needs more than 2. So they'll have those in there. We'll do the same thing on the other side. This was just kind of cheesy. But there again, we're the same stuff. And then I need to put some holes in this top plate here where the where I can weld the apron to it. I'm gonna mark my holes where anything that I put a screw in, I'll take my Sharpie and put a circle around it so I make sure I go back to the same spot like I did on the rockers and everything else. And we'll put some weld on it and this thing will be in place. Alright, so right before I put this piece on, I just wanted to show you real quick. Went ahead and I just decided to put the holes in my apron and then spot wheel holes all the way down the side. This forward edge here, this is the little tab that comes off of the mount. Same thing on this side, just a few extra. And we're gonna stick it on so we can go home. Alright guys, the apron's in, radiator support is in for the most part until we get the other apron. I didn't, if you can see, I cheated. I didn't weld all the spot welds in the tub because I have a rotisserie and I can't stand to lay on my back and reach in there. So I will, once we get it back on the rotisserie, I'll flip it over and I'm going to finish welding it out. But not going to do that today. Got all spot welds here, spot welds to the upper apron. I welded the little angle bracket they didn't have, but 2 spot welds in. I've got it spot welded several times behind it now. Did the same thing to the other side. Battery tray support, they're both in, welded in. Went ahead and added the 4 spot welds to this one also. Just some added insurance. And hopefully the parts folks will get me my parts so I can get this thing finished up. Can't stand to have something laying out there, but I feel like we made a lot of progress this weekend and be back on it again next weekend. So until then, we appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe please, tell your friends, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.